What's up, YouTube's Mountain Man Magic, and we have our farewell, goodbye Dominaria review video. Now, Dominaria was a phenomenal set, but before we send it on its way, we gotta chat about a few things. One of them being my favorite card interactions that I just had a lot of fun playing whenever I could pull them off. The second being why I think this set had the reputation of being slow, and if we can maybe find something interesting that can be applied to future sets. And then third, just my overall limited experience, what my favorite cards were, what I'm gonna miss about this set. Let's get into it. Dominaria had a lot of powerful cards and pretty cool card interactions, but I want to talk about my top 3 or 4 favorite ones. My first one, just overall favorite card interaction, was having 2 Garnas. So if you played one, right, you could attack with everything, and then your second one allowed you to then play it and then get everything back. But let's just say your Garna survived that combat or whatever. When you play your second Garna, the legend rule has to be satisfied before you can move on to anything else that's on the stack or whatever. So you play your second Garna, you get rid of your first Garna, the second Garna comes into play, its ability goes on the stack, and then it says, oh look, all these creatures, including the first Garna, left the battlefield, it comes back to my hand. So now having 2 Garnas gives you an endless loop, provided you have all the mana in the world, to play all your creatures over and over as long as they don't get exiled, essentially. So that was a really fun interaction that I actually stumbled upon in a draft. I was like, well, I'm pretty much dead here, gonna attack with everything, played my second Garna, and then I saw my first Garna come back to my hand, and I was like, wait a minute, we're not dead here. That was a lot of fun. My second was Forebear's Blade. Now this card might seem a little obvious, but what would happen is you'd put it on a Sapperling or something small, you attack with everything, and hopefully you have something like a Thallid Omnivore out. Your opponent would chump block the Thallid Omnivore, you pay 1, sack the Sapperling that has the Forebear's Blade on it, your Thallid Omnivore now becomes a 5/5, then the Forebear's Blade has to be put on something, you put that on the Thallid Omnivore, and now it's an 8/5 with Trample that only has 1 chump blocker in front of it. That's pretty tough to deal with. My third interaction, which held true for both Karn and Teferi, is they had this interaction with your wallet where if you pulled one, it paid for your draft as well as your next one, and maybe even your next one, and maybe even your next one, depending on when you pulled it. That was probably my favorite overall card interaction in the set. So now to talk about why Dominaria had this reputation of being slow, I wanted to dive into it and figure out if there's anything that I could possibly learn that could be applied to a future set just to help me understand what's the pace of this limited environment going to be. So to do that, I focused on creatures with a 4 converted mana cost or below. And I'm not including creatures if they have a kicker spell. I'm only including them unkicked. If they were something like a Call to Cavalry, even though it's basically a creature spell, I'm not including it. Just creature cards, 4 CMC and below, running with that. Now, conveniently enough, if you look at 4 CMC and below in Dominaria, there are exactly 100 creatures. Hey, numbers guy, where did you put all those Dominaria numbers and things that we were looking at? We were looking at for Dominaria. Oh, is this them? Oh, thanks. Here's the average power and toughness of all 100 creatures. I don't know what the numbers guy, what does this mean?
It's just showing that the toughness is higher on average.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but why is it important?
I'm not sure it is. You just asked me for numbers, and that's 2 numbers.
Yeah, that's, don't strain yourself, that's great.
Okay.
The vanilla test. Do we have any numbers, like if you pay 2 for it, do you get a 2/2 creature or like a 1/3 creature?
Well, this does not pass the vanilla test, but it is chocolate, and it's got peanut butter and cookie cups.
Okay, if I just look over the spreadsheet from Numbers Guy, I can see that 42 creatures pass the vanilla test. 58 creatures fail the vanilla test. That's pretty interesting. The only logical, and in no way oversimplifying this, the only thing you can derive from this data is that creatures are typically better blockers than attackers early game. We could just stop there, but let's just take it a step further. Let's look at the average power and toughness for each mana cost. If we look at all these fancy numbers from Numbers Guy, we can see that 1-cost creatures are basically 1 cost. They're not going to blow out the game for you. Our 2-cost creatures, though, have a pretty interesting disparity in that the power and the toughness are quite different. They obviously have a much higher toughness on average. So that could be right there one of the biggest reasons the format is defined as slow. Quick sidebar, I think Kicker in general is a format slowing mechanic because now people are incentivized to find a way to get that max value from their cards. So if they're not really being pressured early, or they can stymie early pressure, Now they can wait to play their 2-cost card for 5, like an Untamed Kavu, and get a 5/5 as opposed to a 2/2. It also allows your decks to be more adaptive, right? Because you can play those kicked cards unkicked just to relieve whatever pressure's there or provide whatever value they can. But if you wait to the mid to late game, they're probably going to help you stabilize or start to turn the tides a bit. Now we can look and see that the disparity between the average toughness for our 2 CMC creatures and the average power of our 3 CMC creatures is not that far off, which also lends itself to us being able to see that probably our 2 drops can block effectively a 3 drop, which is, I mean, it's great value for the 2 drop to be able to block it, but it doesn't bode well for our 3 drops helping us really set that tempo and push through a lot of damage. And then finally, with our 4-drop spot, we start to see a more promising gap develop between the average power and toughnesses, but it doesn't tell us necessarily if it's going to either help blow through whatever defenses are up and kind of stop the gumming up of the board or contribute to it because, well, wait, we're just looking at average power and toughness. Hey, numbers guy, do we have like evasion statistics?
I have evaded that responsibility.
Like, you another bad joke. Okay, but like, seriously, where are they?
You want some ice cream? You have like less than 200 subscribers, dude. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, your face has like 200 faces on it. Sick burn. Yeah, I hope your ice cream has freezer burn. I'll get the numbers myself, okay? Calculating. Oh, I broke something. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. If you look at this super cool graphic, it's not cool. It's lame like numbers guy. But it's showing us that about a quarter of our creatures have evasion. And yes, I was a little generous on the definition of evasion in this set. Obviously flying and menace count, but I also included cards like Relic Runner, which are cards that are only unblockable if you play a historic spell. I also threw Trample in because I find, especially in limited environments, it sets up blocks and attacking combat situations as if they had some type of evasion. Like you don't chump block a Trampler, right? Because it's just going to trample over for damage. So it sets up like it has a menace or it has some type of flying-esque quality to it where you just take the damage and you move on. The higher the mana cost, the more likely it has evasion, which isn't exactly surprising, but it also shows that if we're trying to be evasive, we can't do it until the mid game. So the board is easier to gum up in that early game, and then it's going to be a slow grind with your evasive creature getting through in the mid game. All right, so let's wrap this up. What did we learn?
I would say buy Haagen-Dazs, especially when it's on sale. This stuff is delicious.
We're not talking about ice cream anymore.
Well, they make sorbet too. Jeez, it's not all one-dimensional, you know?
Just take the rest of the day off, numbers guy. You've done enough.
Okay, I'm sorry. Here's a coupon.
So if we take a step back, we know that looking at 4 CMC creatures and below is not a perfect or holistic approach to defining a set's speed or the environment in which we're playing, but I do think it's a pretty great place to start because we can quickly see, are the creatures really powerful or are they better suited as blockers? Again, reiterating Kicker, I think Kicker is something that slows down a format because you want to get max value out of your cards. In this format as well, we know there's a lot of powerful cards at that 5-drop spot and above. Like Sagas, for example, I think are a great reason that the format is also a bit slower. Because if you're playing those, they have really powerful effects, but they take multiple turns to take effect. And then typically they're not blowing your opponent out immediately. Like the game isn't over as soon as you play a Saga. But they do usually help slow the format down. Except for Song of Freyalise, that card's crazy good. And if you watch, even on the Pro Tour, you start seeing people in limited games opting to be on the draw as opposed to on the play, which I think immediately shows that the format's a bit slower because people just want cards as opposed to getting a board presence and just attacking as quickly as possible. And the last comment I'll make about this format being slower is that removal was pretty much available in any color combo you had, and you had good options at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana cost spots. So I think you were able to come up with some type of answer typically in any color combo you had, so you weren't getting blown out too early because you either had the ability to block an opponent's creatures or just remove them and then get to that mid to late game. So yeah, overall, I just thought Dominaria was a phenomenal limited environment. It was slower, but I enjoyed it. That in no way is a knock on the set, but I think what we just looked at, I think is a good description, a good reason as to why it was slower. Now, overall, my experience, I played in about 20 drafts. Wasn't a whole bunch, but I played in 20 drafts. I won 7 trophies. There was never a deck that I didn't at least have fun playing. Fortunately, I never went 0-3 in a draft, and I think I had a pretty decent grasp for the format. You could also have a pretty good deck without needing bomb, mythics, or rares, which I think also lent itself to being a pretty fun format and allowing people to build fun and pretty powerful decks. I also did 3 sealed events online, and I really did not enjoy any of those. With sealed, I was basically tilted as soon as I saw my sealed pool. And my rant is that sealed is more luck based because you just have to have a good sealed pool. You can't force your cards to be better. You can't draft or pick better cards. That's really frustrating. I just think I got really unlucky on the sealed side, and that's okay. It was still a learning experience. There's still something you can take from that, but overall, I vastly prefer drafting to playing sealed. It's fine. I'm not bitter. It's whatever. Moving on. I really enjoyed playing blue, and I think blue is probably the most powerful color when you're in a slower format because tempo can just get you such huge advantages when you can counter and get rid of people's big bombs that they've been delaying and waiting for. Super powerful ability. It's just really strong. Some of my favorite cards were like Academy Journey Mage. I was a huge fan of this card. Just big tempo swings, especially if you could combo it with a Naban. Oh man, whew, good times. I liked most of the sagas. I liked the Eldest Reborn. And I'm going to miss drafting cards like Skittering Surveyor and Grow from the Ashes because they were just super like calming cards. You know, if you were trying to splash or needed to get that bomb in. And my overall favorite card, though, I think was Blessed Light. I don't know why, but this card I splashed for more than anything. It saved me so many times. It won me games so many times. It was just a phenomenal card that I think a lot of people underrated at first and definitely proved its worth towards the end of the format. Yeah, overall, I feel the set definitely lived up to the hype. And I'm excited for Core 2019. I hope it can fill the shoes left by Dominaria. How did you feel about it? Did you enjoy the set? What was your favorite memory or deck that you played revolving around Dominaria? Just did you have success with decks you built, or what did you find the most success with? I'd love to hear what you got to say. Leave it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video or this kind of content, leave me a like, leave me a subscribe. It would really mean a lot. Having a great time making content. I just hope you're all having a good time watching it. If you are, awesome. If not, well, either way, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Vanilla test. Who needs to test vanilla? Here's a test for you. What's the most boring ice cream flavor ever? Vanilla. Boom. Passed. We're done. We out.